Welcome back, everyone, to Britain Point. It's another wild Saturday, and today's breaking story dives right back into a pattern we've seen from Donald Trump for years. Honestly, saying that Trump believes he's some kind of godlike figure isn't even an exaggeration anymore. That level of arrogance and self-importance has always been a defining part of who he is. But what we're talking about today takes his obsession with branding, ego, and personal control to an entirely new level. If there's one thing Trump consistently shows, it's an overwhelming desire to put his name on absolutely everything connected to the federal government. Washington, D.C. unincluded, he acts as if the nation's capital is his personal property, a town he owns, a place that should reflect his image at every turn. And it's that ego, that need to impose himself on every symbol of American governance, that sits at the heart of this new story. Ultimately, it's also the kind of behavior that keeps leading him toward political and legal trouble. We've seen this pattern before, many times. Remember when Trump wanted his name printed right on the federal relief checks during the pandemic? Those checks were meant for Americans struggling through an economic crisis, yet Trump treated them like personal gifts he was handing out. At the time, experts pointed out how unusual and inappropriate it was for a president to personalize government distributions in that way. But to Trump, none of that mattered. What mattered was inserting himself into the process. This wasn't the only example. He talked about the national stockpile in personal terms, as if it belonged to him rather than the American people. He turned himself into the centerpiece of every briefing, every announcement, every piece of federal action during that period. The desire to put his name, face, and identity on public property and public programs has never been subtle. And then there were the attempts to create coins featuring his profile, literal efforts to immortalize himself in metal. Trump has openly embraced the idea of having his image etched into objects, carved into pedestals, or inscribed into stone. These aren't accidental moments. They reflect his larger mission, to glorify himself in the most permanent ways possible, to rewrite how history will remember him through physical symbols and false tributes. It doesn't stop there. One glaring recent example involves President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. Certain projects funded through Biden's legislation were labeled accordingly to give credit to the actual administration behind them. But Trump, in characteristic fashion, decided to slap his own name onto the work. Despite having tried to kill that very infrastructure bill when he was in office, the shamelessness speaks for itself. During a recent segment with Laura Ingraham, Trump proudly walked her through what he calls his presidential walk of fame. And in true Trump fashion, he had replaced Barack Obama and Joe Biden's photos with his own image and another stylized drawing. In the interview, he bragged that the idea was entirely his. When Ingraham asked whether he would eventually restore the actual photos of Obama and Biden, Trump scoffed and said he would not. He went further, calling Biden the worst president in American history and ranking Obama among the top 5 bad presidents. This kind of petty behavior, swapping out predecessors' photos for his own, is exactly the tone that defines him. A grown man with the temperament of a 6-year-old, determined to center himself in every possible setting, even when it means rewriting or erasing history. All of that brings us to today's headline. One of the most iconic structures in Washington, D.C., the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, has become Trump's latest target. Because Trump sees himself as a builder, he believes he has the authority and artistic insight to dictate what should be done to historic American landmarks. During a conversation with Laura Ingraham, he commented on the building's long history. Ingraham noted that when she worked there during the Reagan administration, some people considered the structure unattractive. Trump agreed that this opinion used to be common, but then added that he finds the building incredibly beautiful, before immediately suggesting that it would actually look better if he painted the entire thing completely white. He proudly displayed a mock-up of the proposed paint job, pointing at the edited image and saying, "Look at that! How beautiful that is with a coat of paint." Ingraham hesitated and gently pushed back, asking whether he worried that the building would end up looking like a big white blob. Trump dismissed the concern outright. No, he said, the white paint would bring out all the details. The idea triggered an immediate reaction, because this isn't the first time Trump has taken a heavy hand to historical spaces. Let's not forget that he previously reshaped the Rose Garden and tore down parts of the East Wing of the White House. These actions alarmed historians and preservationists then, and his new plan drew even sharper criticism. Within hours, the DC Preservation League and the law firm Cultural Heritage Partners filed a petition in federal court. They demanded an emergency injunction to stop Trump from making any alterations to the 137-year-old building without the legally required processes. They emphasized that Trump cannot simply wake up, decide he wants a landmark repainted in his personal aesthetic, and order it done like it's part of one of his hotels. Greg Werkheiser, representing the preservation firm, released a statement underscoring the gravity of the situation. The Eisenhower Executive Office building is one of the most important architectural landmarks in the country. Any plan to change its appearance, let alone an irreversible alteration like painting over its historic stone and cast iron facade, must undergo a transparent public process informed by experts that includes assessing potential harm and considering long-term consequences. The building itself is a premier example of French Second Empire architecture, constructed between 1871 and 1888. It originally housed the State, War, and Navy departments. Today it serves more than 500 employees working for the President, the Vice President, and the Departments of Treasury and Defense. The structure is protected for good reason. Its materials, design, and history make it irreplaceable. And yet Trump approached it like another branding opportunity, a chance to impose his personal taste on a piece of American heritage. This lawsuit is exactly why preservation societies exist. Nearly every city in the country has organizations dedicated to protecting historic architecture and preventing reckless modifications. These groups play a vital role in maintaining the integrity of our shared history, and this case is a perfect example of why they matter. Trump, despite acknowledging that the building is already beautiful, insists it would be prettier if he could smother it in white paint. The irony is staggering. Even Laura Ingraham, who rarely challenges Trump, was clearly uncomfortable with the idea. Though she tried to phrase her objections softly, almost nervously, her hesitance speaks volumes about the dynamic within the GOP and the influence Trump holds. The bottom line is this: Trump's desire to redesign, repaint, or rebrand anything that isn't centered around him is a reflection of his broader personality. And in this case, preservationists are doing exactly what they should, pushing back immediately and decisively. They're saying, no, you don't get to alter national history on a whim. And frankly, they're right. They have a strong case. The law is on their side, and it's hard to imagine Trump winning this fight. His ego may be enormous, but federal preservation laws are bigger good on them for stepping up. As always, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay frosty.